A racist teacher humiliates a young black girl for her hair. But when her classmates rise up together, they deliver a lesson so unforgettable it changes everything. The school bell echoed down the hallways, signaling the end of first period. Students bustled through the corridors of Lincoln Heights Middle School, their voices bouncing off the pale yellow walls. Among the sea of movement was 12-year-old Maya Jackson, her radiant smile lighting up the room as she waved to her classmates. Maya had always been the kind of kid people gravitated toward, kind-hearted, optimistic, and unapologetically herself. But today, her heart pounded with a mix of nervousness and excitement. She had spent hours the night before with her mom, carefully twisting her natural curls into intricate bantu knots, adorned with small gold cuffs. It was a style her mom called a crown. "You wear this like the queen you are," her mom had said, kissing her forehead. Maya carried those words with her as she entered her homeroom class, head held high. Mrs. Baxter, her homeroom teacher, sat at her desk, her sharp eyes peering over a pair of thin-rimmed glasses. Known for her strict demeanor and no-nonsense attitude, Mrs. Baxter ran her classroom like clockwork, but it wasn't her rigidity that made Maya nervous. It was the subtle tension she felt whenever their paths crossed. Mrs. Baxter had a way of making Maya feel small, as if her very presence was an inconvenience. As Maya walked to her seat near the middle of the classroom, she noticed a few heads turn, her classmates whispering and pointing at her hair. "Wow, that looks amazing," one girl said, her tone sincere. Another classmate gave her a thumbs up. Maya's confidence soared, but it didn't last long. Mrs. Baxter's voice sliced through the air. "Maya, can I see you at my desk?" she called. Her tone clipped. The room fell silent as Maya hesitated, her feet feeling like they were glued to the floor. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the lump forming in her throat. She approached the desk, clutching her notebook tightly. Mrs. Baxter leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "What exactly is this?" she asked, gesturing toward Maya's hair. Maya blinked, confused. "It's my hair, Mom. And you thought that was appropriate for school?" Mrs. Baxter's lips curled into a tight line. Her voice carried the weight of judgment, loud enough for the entire class to hear. "It looks unprofessional. Distracting even." A hush fell over the room, and Maya felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. She glanced around, her classmates' faces a mixture of shock and discomfort. Her pulse quickened as she struggled to find her voice. "But it's just my hair," Maya said softly. "My mom helped me do it. She said it's a crown." Mrs. Baxter scoffed. "A crown? This isn't a beauty pageant, young lady. Next time, try to come to school looking presentable." Tears pricked the corners of Maya's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as the words sank in. "Yes, Ma'am," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Good. Now take your seat," Mrs. Baxter said, dismissing her with a wave. Maya walked back to her desk, her head bowed. The room felt colder, the vibrant energy from earlier replaced by a suffocating stillness. She sank into her chair, her heart heavy with a mix of shame and anger. A few classmates shot her sympathetic looks, but no one said a word. The silence was deafening. For the rest of the period, Maya stared blankly at her notebook, Mrs. Baxter's words replaying in her mind like a broken record. Unprofessional, distracting, presentable. Each word felt like a jab, stripping away the pride she had felt just an hour ago. When the bell rang, signaling the end of homeroom, Maya quickly gathered her things, avoiding eye contact with anyone. As she stepped into the hallway, a familiar voice called after her. "Hey, Maya, wait up." She turned to see her best friend Leah rushing to catch up. Leah's face was flushed with anger, her curly ponytail bouncing as she hurried toward Maya. "That was so messed up," Leah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "She had no right to talk to you like that." Maya shrugged, her shoulders slumping. "Maybe she's right. Maybe it's too much." Leah grabbed her arm, forcing Maya to stop and look at her. "No, Maya. Your hair is beautiful. Don't let her make you think otherwise." Tears finally spilled over as Maya hugged Leah tightly. "Thanks," she whispered, her voice cracking. But deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it. As they walked to their next class, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of being singled out, of being made to feel less than. She didn't know it yet, But this moment would be the spark that ignited something far bigger than herself. A moment that would test her strength and reveal the power of solidarity in the most unexpected way. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual midday chaos, students laughing, trading snacks, and shouting over the clatter of trays. But at a table near the back, the mood was far more subdued. Maya sat with her tray untouched, absently poking at her spaghetti while Leah and a few other friends tried to cheer her up. "You can't let her get to you, Maya," Leah said firmly, leaning across the table. "Mrs. Baxter's just bitter because she's stuck teaching middle school math. She's always been rude," added Amir, one of their classmates. "Last week she called my project sloppy in front of everyone, even though I worked on it for hours. She doesn't like anyone who doesn't fit her perfect little mold," said Grace, who sat beside Maya. "But this, calling out your hair, that's just wrong." Maya managed a weak smile, appreciating their support, but the weight of the morning still pressed heavily on her chest. She glanced around the cafeteria, noticing a few kids staring at her. Whispers followed, their words just out of earshot, but Maya could feel their judgment. Leah slammed her juice box onto the table, startling everyone. "You know what? We're not letting her get away with this." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and fear. "I mean," Leah said, her eyes narrowing with determination, "she thinks she can treat you like that and just move on? No way. We're going to show her she messed with the wrong person." Amir leaned forward, his eyebrows raised. "What are you thinking?" Leah grinned, her confidence contagious. "We show her what unity looks like. If she's going to call out Maya's hair, let's see what she does when we all show up rocking crowns." Maya's eyes widened. "You mean everyone wearing their hair like mine?" "Exactly," Leah said. "Tomorrow we show her that your hair isn't a distraction. It's art. It's pride. And we're not going to let her shame you for it." Maya hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. "But what if she gets mad? What if it just makes things worse?" Grace reached out, placing a hand on Maya's. "She's already trying to make you feel small. We're not letting her win. You're not alone in this." Amir nodded. "Yeah, Mrs. Baxter can't punish all of us. If she tries, we'll take it to the principal. Maybe even our parents." Maya's heart swelled at their words, a flicker of hope sparking deep within her. She had felt so isolated earlier, but now, surrounded by her friends' unwavering support, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Leah stood up, holding her phone like a conductor's baton. "All right, here's the plan. We're going to spread the word. Text chains, group chats, everything. By tomorrow morning we'll have half the school in bantu knots, braids, afros, whatever feels right. Everyone should feel proud of who they are." Maya couldn't help but laugh. A genuine sound she hadn't made all day. "You really think people will do it?" Leah smirked. "Are you kidding? Everyone loves a chance to stick it to Mrs. Baxter. Trust me." By the end of lunch, their plan was in motion. Grace created a digital flyer with the words "Crown Day" in bold letters, accompanied by a picture of a sparkling tiara. Amir drafted a text message explaining the movement. "Show your support for Maya and for everyone who's been made to feel less than. Wear your crown tomorrow, your hair, your pride." The message spread like wildfire, bouncing from group chat to group chat until it reached nearly every corner of the school. That evening, as Maya sat on her bed scrolling through her phone, she saw post after post from classmates showing off their planned hairstyles for the next day. Some were simple, others elaborate, but all carried the same message of unity. A lump formed in her throat as she realized just how many people had her back. Her mum walked into the room, holding a plate of cookies. "You doing okay, baby?" she asked, sitting beside her. Maya nodded, though tears shimmered in her eyes. "I think so. My friends came up with this idea. They're all going to wear crowns tomorrow." For me, Mum's eyes softened, pride radiating from her smile. "That's beautiful, Maya. See? You've got a whole village behind you." Maya leaned into her mum's embrace, the weight of the day easing just a little. "Thanks, Mum." The next morning, Maya stood in front of her mirror, her fingers nervously tracing the gold cuffs in her bantu knots. She took a deep breath, her mum's words echoing in her mind. "You wear this like the queen you are." When she arrived at school, her heart skipped a beat. Everywhere she looked, Students were wearing their hair in every style imaginable: twists, braids, puffs, coils, and more. Some kids even wore plastic tiaras or gold paper crowns for dramatic flair. The halls buzzed with excitement and whispers of anticipation. Leah ran up to Maya, her own hair styled in a high puff, adorned with tiny glittering pins. "How do we look?" she asked with a grin, gesturing to the sea of students behind her. Maya laughed, her heart brimming with gratitude. "You all look amazing." "Let's see how Mrs. Baxter likes her distractions," Leah said, linking her arm with Maya's. As they walked into homeroom, the room fell silent. Mrs. Baxter sat at her desk, her mouth slightly open as she took in the sight of nearly every student wearing their hair in bold, unapologetic styles. Her expression tightened, her eyes narrowing as Maya and Leah took their seats. Maya's pulse raced, but for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt powerful. The news of what had happened in Mrs. Baxter's classroom spread through the school like wildfire. By lunchtime, nearly every student and teacher had heard about Crown Day and the confrontation that left the notoriously strict Mrs. Baxter temporarily removed from her duties. Maya walked into the cafeteria with Leah, Amir, and Grace at her side. Conversations paused, and heads turned in her direction. For a moment, Maya's nerves flared, worried the stares were more judgment than admiration. But then, a student clapped. Another joined in. Soon, the entire cafeteria erupted into applause. Maya froze, stunned by the outpouring of support. Leah nudged her forward, whispering, "Go on. This is for you." Maya gave a small, shy wave, her face flushed with emotion. The applause turned into cheers, and students shouted things like, "You're amazing, Maya," and "Crown Day forever." By the time they sat at their usual table, Maya felt the unfamiliar sensation of pride bubbling up. She looked at her friends, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "Thank you, guys. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Leah grinned. "You're the reason this happened, Maya. You were brave enough to just be you. We just made some noise about it." Maya laughed, a genuine sound that echoed through the busy cafeteria. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt seen, not for what someone thought she should be, but for who she was. Across campus, teachers gathered in the staff lounge, discussing the morning's events. While some defended Mrs. Baxter, others expressed their shock at the treatment Maya had endured. "I heard Maya was just sitting there minding her business, and Baxter made a whole scene about her hair," one teacher said, shaking her head. "It's not the first time she's done something like this," said another. "Remember last year when she called out that student for wearing a hoodie? I think it's high time the administration looked into her behavior." The principal, Mr. Harper, entered the lounge mid-discussion, his presence immediately quieting the chatter. He cleared his throat. "I appreciate everyone's feedback regarding this morning's incident. I want to assure you all that it's being handled with the utmost seriousness. This school has zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, though a few teachers exchanged skeptical glances. By the time Maya got home, she was mentally and emotionally exhausted. The events of the day had taken a toll, but they'd also left her feeling stronger than ever. Her mum was waiting for her in the kitchen, a steaming cup of cocoa in hand. "How was it, baby?" she asked, her eyes scanning Maya's face for any signs of distress. Maya sat at the table, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "It was a lot," she admitted, "but it was amazing too. Everyone had my back. Even Mr. Harper stepped in and made sure Mrs. Baxter was held accountable." Her mum's eyes softened, and she reached across the table to squeeze Maya's hand. "I'm so proud of you. Do you know how much courage it takes to stand tall in the face of something like that? You're showing people how to be better, just by being yourself." Maya smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing. "Thanks, Mom. It still feels a little scary, but I think we did something good today." "You did," her mom said firmly, "and don't you forget it." The next day, Maya was surprised to find that the spirit of Crown Day hadn't faded. More students arrived with their hair styled in bold, expressive ways, some even more elaborate than the day before. Posters had been taped to walls around the school, with slogans like "Pride in every strand" and "Our hair, our identity." In one hallway, Maya stumbled upon a small group of students who had started a petition. "What's this?" she asked, curiosity piqued. A boy with glasses looked up, smiling. "We're getting people to sign a pledge to support inclusivity and respect at school. We're hoping the administration will adopt it as an official policy." Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion. "That's incredible," she said, signing her name at the top of the page. As the days went on, the school began to change. What started as a single act of defiance turned into a movement. Students began openly celebrating their differences, and conversations about inclusion became a regular part of the curriculum. The administration organized workshops for staff, focusing on cultural sensitivity and implicit bias, ensuring that no student would ever feel the way Maya had that day in homeroom. Even Mrs. Baxter's absence became a catalyst for reflection among the teachers. Those who had overlooked or excused her behavior in the past began questioning their own roles in perpetuating a culture of silence. For Maya, the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were still whispers and moments of discomfort, but they were overshadowed by the overwhelming support of her peers. She walked the hallways with her head high, her gold-cuffed bantu knots gleaming like the crown her mom had always said they were. One afternoon, as she was leaving school, Mr. Harper approached her in the hallway. "Maya, can I have a moment?" "Of course," she said, stopping in her tracks. "I wanted to thank you," he said, his tone sincere. "What you and your friends did was brave, and it opened a door for this school to grow. I hope you know how much of an impact you've had." Maya smiled, her voice steady. "Thank you, Mr. Harper. I just wanted to feel like I belonged. I didn't think it would turn into all of this." "Sometimes," he said with a smile, "it only takes one person to start something big. You've got more strength than most people twice your age, Maya. Don't ever lose that." As Maya walked out into the afternoon sun, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every student who had ever been made to feel invisible or unworthy. And as she looked around at the vibrant, united community that had blossomed from her moment of vulnerability, she knew one thing for certain: they had created something extraordinary. Months passed, and the events of Crown Day became a turning point for Lincoln Heights Middle School. The movement that began with Maya's hair spread far beyond the confines of Mrs. Baxter's classroom. Students took pride in their individuality, teachers adapted their approaches to foster inclusivity, and the school itself felt like a different place, a place where differences were celebrated rather than scrutinized. Maya's journey was far from over. She still faced moments of doubt, the occasional sidelong glance or whispered comment, but those moments didn't carry the same weight anymore. With each passing day, she felt herself growing stronger, her confidence rooted in the unwavering support of her friends, her mom, and the students who had rallied around her. One afternoon, Maya stood at the front of the auditorium during a school assembly. Mr. Harper had asked her to speak about her experience, and though the idea terrified her, she knew how important it was. As she looked out at the sea of students and teachers, her heart pounded in her chest. "Hi everyone," she began, her voice shaking slightly. She gripped the microphone tighter, her eyes scanning the crowd. Leah gave her a thumbs up from the front row, and Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself. "When this all started, I didn't think it would lead to something this big," Maya said. "I was just trying to be myself. But when someone made me feel like that wasn't good enough, I realized how much it hurt. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel like they didn't belong." She paused, her voice growing steadier with each word. But then something amazing happened. People stood up for me. You all stood up for me. And together, we showed that being different isn't something to hide. It's something to celebrate. The audience broke into applause, and Maya smiled, her chest swelling with pride. "This school feels different now," she continued. "It feels better, but there's still work to do. We have to keep supporting each other, keep standing up for what's right, because no one should ever feel ashamed of who they are." As the crowd erupted into cheers, Maya stepped back, her heart pounding with exhilaration. She handed the microphone back to Mr. Harper, who gave her an approving nod. "Well said, Maya," he said, addressing the assembly. "Lincoln Heights is proud to call you one of our own. and I hope you all take her words to heart. Let's keep building a community where everyone feels respected and valued." That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her mum, scrolling through messages on her phone. Students had shared pictures from the assembly, tagging Maya with captions like, "Our Queen," and "Pride in every strand." Maya's cheeks ached from smiling so much. But the warmth in her heart made it impossible to stop. Her mum set a plate of cookies on the table and sat beside her. "You've made a real difference, Maya," she said softly. Maya looked up, her eyes shining. "I didn't do it alone. I had so many people helping me." Her mum nodded. "Maybe so, but it all started with you. Your courage, your strength. Don't ever forget that." Maya leaned against her mum's shoulder, savoring the quiet moment. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." The next morning, Maya arrived at school to find a surprise waiting for her in the main hallway. A mural had been painted on the wall, a vibrant explosion of colors and patterns. At its center was a silhouette of a girl wearing bantu knots adorned with gold cuffs. Above her head, bold letters spelled out, "Our crowns, our pride." Maya gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Leah appeared beside her, grinning from ear to ear. "What do you think?" It's incredible," Maya said, her voice trembling. "It's for you," Leah said. "For all of us, but mostly for you." Students gathered around the mural, snapping photos and admiring the artwork. Maya touched the edge of the painting, her heart overflowing with gratitude. "This is more than I ever imagined," she said softly. Leah wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You deserve it, Maya. You showed all of us what it means to be brave." As the day went on, students stopped by the mural to take pictures, write messages of support on a nearby bulletin board, and share stories of their own experiences. The mural became a symbol of resilience, a permanent reminder of the power of standing together. Years later, long after Maya had graduated, the mural still stood in the hallway at Lincoln Heights Middle School. It had become a part of the school's identity, inspiring new generations of students to take pride in themselves and support one another. For Maya, the experience shaped the rest of her life. She went on to become a social worker, dedicating her career to helping young people find their voices and embrace their identities. She often looked back on that day in Mrs. Baxter's classroom, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the strength it had revealed in her and the community it had built around her. Because in the end, Maya's story wasn't just about her. It was about the power of unity, the beauty of individuality, and the profound impact of a single act of courage.